Hey there. Silly story here, bringing you another silly tale for everyone to enjoy. Title: The Mediocre Marvel. A tale of an underwhelming hero. People call me Sneeze Man. Not exactly a name that strikes fear into the hearts of villains. But when you're gifted with the power to make people sneeze on command, the nickname kind of writes itself. There's a lot I don't know about superhero training, but I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who's ever spent hours perfecting the angle at which to point a finger to induce maximum nasal disturbance. See, I never got invited to join the Hero League. Not with the likes of Thunderfist, Megalast, or Lady Lightning zipping around. My application probably ended up in a rejected, return to cinder pile, somewhere in the Hero League's giant filing cabinet. But hey, not everyone's born with the ability to leap buildings or throw cars. Some of us have other talents, like making people tie their own shoelaces into knots, and, well, making people sneeze. Despite the rejection, I figured I'd keep trying to be useful. So I patrolled the streets, looking for some petty crime or a good Samaritan situation. Unfortunately, people didn't take too well to a guy in a mask asking, "Need help with those groceries?" Or, "Sir, should I induce a sneeze on that pickpocket for you?" Usually, I got a lot of strange looks. Then one day, the city faced an actual crisis, a real villain, and the A-Team heroes. Nowhere to be found. Something about an international incident in Monaco. That left me, so there I was, Sneeze Man, staring down Dr. Disaster, a guy with a ray gun that looked like it could vaporize half the city in one shot. A crowd had gathered behind me, phones out, ready to record my moment of glory, more likely my imminent failure. I knew I had to act fast, so I did what I did best. I focused all my might, aimed right at Dr. Disaster, and let loose my sneeze-inducing powers. But there was a slight miscalculation. Instead of hitting the villain, my sneeze power bounced around, triggering a chain reaction in the crowd. One person sneezed, then another, and before I knew it, the whole crowd was sneezing uncontrollably. People were bent over, eyes watering, noses red. Phones slipped from hands, and a few folks even tripped in their efforts to pull out tissues. Dr. Disaster, meanwhile, looked utterly confused. "What are you doing?" he yelled, almost offended by the absurdity of it all. "Oh, consider it a distraction," I said sheepishly, as the crowd continued their sneezing fit behind me. After the sneeze fiasco, I figured I needed a new strategy. Thankfully, Dr. Disaster was too thrown off by my random display to react right away. So I rushed forward, rope in hand, planning to tie him up with my special knot. I had practiced this knot for hours. It was the one thing I could do with absolute confidence. I looped the rope around him, twisted, knotted, double knotted just like I'd rehearsed. I stepped back, admiring my handiwork. "I've done it." Dr. Disaster was wrapped up in my ropes, unable to move, except one minor problem. As I reached to untie the last knot, just in case, I realized I'd somehow managed to trap my own fingers in it. The knot was more complicated than I remembered. "Hold on," I muttered, trying to yank my hand free. It was stuck. Dr. Disaster, tied up and looking thoroughly annoyed, sighed. "Are you serious right now? How about you twist it like this?" he suggested, nodding at the rope. "Oh, right," I said, flustered. I twisted the rope, no luck. Can you just, with another sigh, Dr. Disaster somehow maneuvered his own hand free and started helping me untangle the knot from his own bonds. By the time I finally got the rope loose, he'd almost completely freed himself. "Maybe next time, stick to the sneezing," he suggested, winking before he slipped away, leaving me tangled in my own heroic rope. Now, after the failed sneeze attack and knot catastrophe, I started feeling discouraged. How was I supposed to save the day if I couldn't even tie up a villain properly? My powers were, well, embarrassingly underwhelming. I mean, who'd ever heard of a superhero who couldn't chase down a criminal? That's when I had a genius idea. If I couldn't stop villains on the ground, maybe I could try from above. Flying? Sure. I'd never flown before, but hey, I'd seen enough YouTube videos to know the basics. I got my hands on a DIY rocket pack and a pair of goggles. Safety first, right? Ready to take to the skies and show the world I was more than just a one-trick sneeze machine. I strapped myself in, took a deep breath, and ignited the DIY rocket pack. I soared upward, a majestic few feet off the ground before the rocket spluttered, veered sideways, and sent me crashing down, right in front of a group of bystanders. I'd misjudged the fuel and face planted into the sidewalk. One kid looked up from his phone and said, "Dude, did you forget to read the instructions?" I wanted to disappear, but my rocket pack gave a final sputter, sending me bouncing a few more inches forward on the pavement, right in front of a camera crew. The local news showed up right as I groaned, a tangled mess of wires and rocket fumes, lying in defeat. This was definitely not the kind of heroic debut I'd imagined. Somehow, after my disastrous day, Word spread that I fought off Dr. Disaster. The reality was he'd been so baffled by my sneeze powers and not mishap that he hadn't actually done anything destructive. The guy was just too busy laughing, or possibly pitying me, to bother. But to everyone else, it looked like I foiled a major villain's evil plot. People started talking about how Sneeze Man had saved the day. Kids waved at me when they passed by, asking if I'd make their friends sneeze, which I, of course, did. In the Hero League, they actually reached out to me, saying they'd reconsidered my application. Not that they were offering a spot on the 18